Are you gearing up for your next cold adventure and can't decide which fleece you're going to take or which fleece you need to get?
I don't know.
Today we are looking at two fleeces. We're putting the North Face Summit Future Fleece head to head with the Macpac Nitro Alpha Direct Fleece. And today we're comparing their warmth, their weight, their durability and their breathability. Stick around to find out which one might be worth your investment. Hi everyone, welcome back. Mouser here. And I've been hiking here in Tasmania for over 30 years and I have tried a lot of different gear. And one bit of gear that's always at the forefront of my mind when I'm heading out on a trip is my fleece. Now, after going on a bit of a deep dive on my fleece history a few videos ago, I have gone deep into the world of Octayarn and Alpha Direct Fleece. Today, we're going into both of them. We're looking at them. We're looking at what they are, where they come from, and we'll look at which fleece is best for your hiking needs. We're going to be looking at the North Face Summit Series Future Fleece and the Macpac Alpha Direct Nitro Fleece. Both promise comfort and functionality, but which one will come out on top? Let's dive straight in and find out. Now, before we get into the detail, this video is not sponsored at all. I bought both fleeces with my own money and have tested them out independently on my trips. If you're interested in purchasing these products, they're available at the proprietary stores or by the affiliate links down below in the description. Now, if you purchase via those links, I may get a small commission, got to tell you that, but that in no way influences my assessment of these fleece. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about Octayarn and Alpha Direct. So today's video comes from a viewer question a few months ago, and some viewer comments on another video I made, and that video was all about my fleece journey. The fleece I have worn over the years through my hiking journeys at expeditions. I went through it all on that video. You can check that one out up there. But a few viewers made quite a few comments on that video. It was a popular one, and I sort of discovered some of these fleeces I hadn't really looked at before in the comments section, and one in particular caught my eye. And it was from Mike Kelly 6603. Thanks, Mike Kelly 6603. And he told me about a fleece setup he was using. And on that video, I talked about one of my favorites, the Patagonia R1 fleece. And Mike said, I agree, the old R1 hood pullover is one of my favorites. The R1 Nexus skin and a light soft shell is my go-to for cold weather rock climbing, but it's often too warm for hiking uphill. And I do agree with that. Very good point, which is why I like this comment. And he said, my most used is the North Face Future Fleece light pullover hoodie, Octayarn, which is about a 1/3 the weight of R1 and maybe half the warmth. It dries faster than the R1 and paired with a soft shell gives me the right warmth for a wide range of temperatures. He goes on to talk about a mountain equipment kinesis jacket as well, which I wouldn't mind trying at some stage. And he talked about the North Face Future Fleece. So I commented back to Mike Kelly 6603, and he did point out he wished he had bought two of these things when he bought it. So I found one online, I bought it, I thought that looks like a good option, and it was a good weight saving compared to my Patagonia R1 hoodie that I was taking on every trip. So I bought this one to take on a big 9-day trip that I did a few months ago, and I really tested it out then. So today we're talking about two particular fleece that I have owned and used in the last 5 months or so. But firstly, I want to talk about the differences in these two types of fabrics. First up, we've got the North Face Future Fleece, which is made of Octayarn. And we are also going to be checking out the Macpac Nitro Fleece hoodie. So firstly, let's discuss what is the difference between these two fabrics. So in case you don't know, fleece is not just fleece.
What the hell does that mean?
You've got your traditional polar fleece, which was started by Polartec, which I talked about in another video just a few months ago. But these two, while they feel and look similar to polar fleece or Polartec fabric, they are in fact slightly different.
That's interesting.
So the Octayarn, this one, and the Alpha Direct Fleece are two different types of fleece fabrics, and each has its own unique properties and characteristics. First up, Octayarn. Octayarn is a proprietary fleece fabric developed by a Japanese company called Teijin back in 2018. It is a lightweight, highly breathable, and quick-drying material made from a blend of polyester and nylon fibers. And what I didn't actually know when I bought this, I'd heard of Octayarn, but there is a reason it is called Octayarn. yarn, and that is because the fibres are arranged in a unique octagonal pattern. So when you zoom right in with a microscope, like they show on their website, each fibre has 8 little projections aligned in a radial pattern around a hollow fibre. The Void's innate thin fibre structure improve heat shielding and insulation properties, as well as create the lightweight feel of hollow yarn at roughly 50% the weight of yarn of similar thicknesses. So you get that lightweightedness is it? Because the fibres are basically hollow. They've got little projections off the side, and it just reduces weight. When you're using a lot of fabric, it reduces the weight significantly. On the other hand, Alpha Direct is a fleece fabric developed by a company called Polartec. Polartec have been at the forefront of fleece fabric development since the 1970s, when they helped Patagonia developed the Chinchilla fleece, the very first polar fleece garment. And more recently, they have developed this, the Alpha Direct fabric. This is a highly breathable and permeable lightweight fleece fabric, and it consists of a woven lattice structure with little fuzzy tufts sewn into it. So if we can get a close-up, you'll sort of see there is a bit of a grid behind some fluffy tufts which poke out of the fabric. And unlike a traditional fleece fabric, this doesn't have a backing, so it's the same on both sides basically. It's that lattice sort of structure with the fluffy tufts coming out of it. And the reason for this is that it makes it more permeable and breathable. So the reason for that, the lack of a backing, is that it allows the fabric to constantly release excess heat and moisture before it builds up on the body, leading to saturation and discomfort. And since it is hydrophobic, it resists all moisture and dries incredibly fast. So you're probably looking at me going, well, they look pretty much the same. Octayarn and Alpha Direct look very similar, but there are some differences.
Okay.
Firstly, the composition. Octayarn is a blend of polyester and nylon fibres, whereas Alpha Direct is made entirely of polyester. Secondly, structure. Octayarn has an octagonal fibre pattern, while the Alpha Direct has the woven lattice structure with the fuzzy tufts. Thirdly, breathability. Both fabrics are considered highly breathable, but the Alpha Direct is considered more air permeable due to that lack of backing fabric. And finally, durability. Octayarn is generally considered more durable than Alpha Direct and also more resistant to abrasion. The Alpha Direct, and I have found this, is probably a little bit more fragile than the Octayarn fabric. So with all of that sort of information out of the way, let's have a look at each product, at each fabric, and see what I have thought of them after using them for nearly 5 months. And let's start with the North Face Future Fleece. The North Face Summit Series Future Fleece Full Zip Hooded Jacket. So yes, this thing, the North Face Future Fleece Hooded Jacket. Now, the one I've bought here on my scales weighs 239 grams. And I took this as a bit of a mid-layer on my recent 9-day trip to the Eldon Range here in Tasmania in Australia, where we were expecting it to get quite cold of an evening. I wanted something that I could walk in that wasn't quite as hot as something like my Patagonia R1 hooded fleece, and so I thought I would give this a try. And the main reason I took this one over the Alpha Direct was durability. I was worried that the Alpha Direct, rubbing against scrub and trees, that sort of thing, where I was going very rough country, that it would get ripped and tear. And while I was out on that expedition, I wore this all the time. I wore it every single day. I would generally have it on in the morning, first thing when I was packing up around camp, and I could wear this with a thermal layer underneath and without an insulation layer over the top, without a thicker jacket, and I found that I was quite warm. I found it to be extremely effective at retaining heat when I was wearing it, and that was despite it's a relatively lightweight fleece. It is really quite lightweight, and I thought that was a fantastic feature. The lightweightness, the warmth to weight ratio was better than what I have used in the past with other fleece. I also found it really good while I was walking. I would often, on the first few days of this trip, it was quite cold, so I would wear my thermal underneath. I would zip this on over the top, and I could walk in this with my thermal underneath and a raincoat as well with my shell layer, and be just right. I wouldn't get too hot, I wouldn't get cold. It was just perfect, the temperature I could maintain in it, and I wasn't sweating too much either. I wasn't really sweating at all while I was walking in this. If I did get too hot, I'd just take it off, but I found it really, really good. I wasn't overheating like I have done in the past with thicker fleeces on. In terms of features, well, let's start with the fleece itself. So starting with the external fabric itself. So you've got the Octayarn there and the fleecy inner, which is quite nice. And the reason, like I said, I bought this is it is going to be more durable on the outside because it doesn't have anything that can catch really as you're walking along, especially through scrub. If you're wearing this with no jacket in addition to this, it's going to be a bit more durable, were my thoughts, and it held up very well on an extremely rough trip. Obviously a full zip down the length of it there, which I like. I do like to have a jacket as opposed to a pullover or hoodie pullover like my other ones, but I just like the flexibility of being able to do that. And you can also see when I put the hood on, the only thing I probably do miss a little would maybe be a drawstring. My Patagonia R1 pullover actually is quite tight. It doesn't have a drawstring, but it tightens in a bit more than this. This does have an elasticated sort of hem around the opening there, but it doesn't tighten right down like my Patagonia R1 does. That's probably a minor issue for me, but not a great, I wouldn't not buy it because of it, but I did like this while I was walking, being able to put the hood on. I do like to have a fleece hood. And with this hood, it is probably a bit looser, the hood, because it is built to wear a helmet underneath, I think. So that could be, that's why it's probably a bit looser than my other one. So if you're climbing, rock climbing, very useful in that respect. In the cuffs, on the sleeves, they do have thumb loops, which again, I like that feature in a fleece, especially where I'm layering. I like to be able to keep this, especially if I've got a raincoat on, I like to be able to get this down to the end of the raincoat to the jacket. Then I'll generally take my thumbs out of the loops once I've got it on properly and keep them out like that. If I had them in the thumb loops all the time, I don't reckon it'd be too long before I tore that open, just because of the way I'm moving when I'm hiking. But that could be an issue, I guess, if thumb loops, they look pretty strong when you pull at them. It also has sort of this gaiter scenario going. The thumb loop goes all the way around the hem of the cuff there, all the way around, so it sort of stops any drafts getting in through there as well. It tightens down a bit. It's quite good as well. It's elasticated, and it's very form-fitting. It's not a loose fit by any means. Probably a bit looser than the other one we're going to have a look at, but feels very comfortable, very, very warm. You put this on and you heat up pretty quickly, especially inside here. I'm getting quite warm wearing this now. Now, one thing I did notice when wearing this, we had quite a bit of rain on this trip in the first few days, and generally in the past, when I'm wearing a fleece under my raincoat, it does get a bit damp, and then I will wear it to dry it out. And generally the wetness comes in the sleeves because you get water coming down the cuffs of your raincoat often, if on those really bad days. And I found with this one that on a couple of days, I got wet sort of to the elbows, even a bit further up in this. This was completely wet when I got to camp. Both elbows, both arms, very wet. And I did find the drying time was quite long when I was wearing it compared to other fleeces I've worn in the past. And when I've looked into this since being back, there's been some people who've done some studies and things, and what they have found is that Octayarn probably absorbs more water than conventional wicking fabrics and Alpha Direct. So that to me definitely makes sense. I found it took longer to dry, and I actually commented to a couple of my buddies out there, this is taking a long time to dry when I'm wearing it, because when I'm wearing it around camp, that stuff tends to dry fairly quickly, like in an afternoon before bed. But I found this was even still damp when I was going to bed, but I kept it on and dried out eventually. But I did notice that. The only other thing, and it's not a problem with the product itself, it's more the beating I gave it. This thing really stood up well on this big trip. On about the second last day though, I did put a small tear in it. I caught on a tree, on a very rough tree, as I was walking past, and it just tore a little tear in it. I will sew that up. I think that was unavoidable. A thicker fabric, it probably wouldn't have happened, but yeah, that's what happens when you're out in the scrub. I think the Alpha Direct fleece would have been torn all over if I'd worn it on this same trip. I was able to wear this, it's got a few small pulls on it, but nothing major. It's held up extremely well. This will go for a long time yet. Now switching to the Alpha Direct fleece, Macpac Men's Nitro Fleece Pullover. This one is from a company here in Australia that has a lot of stores. They're called Macpac, make some pretty good stuff, and I've been using their gear for close to 30 years. But this is one of their Alpha Direct fleece. This is called the Nitro Pullover with a hood, and as you can see, it's got those little tufts of the fleece coming out, and it's on that lattice work sort of grid pattern in the fabric there. So this one is a bit tighter fitting than the North Face one. again, feels very warm when I'm wearing it here. And this one weighs quite a bit less than the North Face one. This one is 140 grams, which is why I bought it, because that is so light. 140 grams. The only disadvantage with that weight is if you were standing up on a mountaintop in strong wind, just the nature of the fabric, it's going to let a lot of wind in. I mean, it's a lattice work thing. It's see-through. So if you don't have a shell on, a raincoat or something, or another insulation layer, you probably get quite cool in it. But it is made to be worn when you're active, when you're walking, when you're hiking, with other layers on. And admittedly, I haven't worn this as much as the Future Fleece yet. I've taken this on a couple of shorter trips, but I did really like it. It was great to wear around camp. It was great to wear while you're walking as well. And even in those cooler, breezier conditions, I found that when I put this on straight away, I warmed up instantly. It worked really well. Now, what Macpac have done, they've also developed a couple of other Alpha Direct products which have a lining on the exterior as well. And I have checked them out, and some of my friends have some of them as well. There is the Nitro Hybrid jacket, which has some paneling and stuff instead of fleece to provide a bit more wind resistance. Then there is also the Macpac Men's Pisa hooded jacket, and that's got a ripstop nylon outer, which helps increase its wind resistance. And while I haven't used that Pisa jacket, when I talked to the guys at Macpac, they rave about it. They said pretty much everyone that buys a Nitro fleece like this one ends up getting a Pisa jacket. Maybe we'll go there, don't know. And when you look at the weight, the Pisa is 380 grams, pretty good still, heavier than that Future Fleece, but looks like a very good option. Now, in terms of moisture, the issues I had with the Future Fleece, I haven't noticed them as much with this, but admittedly I haven't had it in as bad rain as what I had that. But just looking at the nature of the fabric, it is a lot thinner and lighter. I would have to say that would have to dry lighter. I am guessing, but after everything I read, it would make sense that this would dry much quicker. In terms of design features, again, it's got the thumb loops like the Future Fleece. These don't have a cuff all around there, like the hem around all the way there. It's just stitched onto one piece. Probably got a bit more give in it than the Future Fleece one, but then I have the thumb out of it once it's on. So that's not bad. It's got the hood. This is probably about the same as the Future Fleece. You couldn't get a helmet on in this, I don't think. That wouldn't work. Be a bit too tight. Again, it's quite loose around the edges here. Not much else to say. It's got a pocket there. The other one had a pocket as well. And that's about it. This one isn't as elasticated around the waist as the Future Fleece. Like, that's pretty loose. But all in all, I like it. It's a good hoodie. It's quite affordable. And here in Australia, this one is 143 or 144 Australian dollars if you're a Macpac member, which you would be if you're going to buy this thing. Whereas the Future Fleece is nearly twice the price at $270. But I do think the North Face Future Fleece is worth that extra investment because I feel it is a warmer jacket than this. So what's my opinion? What is my favorite out of the two sort of jackets there? The two pullover, one's a jacket, one's a pullover, but what do I prefer? Well, during testing, I noticed several key differences with both of them. First, warmth and insulation. The North Face Future Fleece hoodie, I feel, provided better insulation for me in colder conditions, and that is because it's got that fabric outer as opposed to the Alpha Direct, which is just that lattice work and can let the wind in. I just think it's good. This is going to give you better insulation just due to the nature of the fabric there with the Future Fleece. Secondly, comfort and fit. Both jackets offer an excellent fit. They both fit very well, feel very comfortable. I've got to say, I think I prefer the Future Fleece in terms of fit as well. It's a nicer feeling jacket. I feel I could, a bit more comfy to wear around. I feel a bit more restricted in the Macpac Nitro fleece, whereas this one, and the fact it's a jacket as well, I just like being able to undo it and do it up and sort of adjust my comfort level. Thirdly, breathability and durability. Now, while they're both very breathable, the Macpac wins there for sure. Obviously, it's sort of transparent, so it's going to let the air flow in, whereas this one I don't think will breathe as well as that. That's just the nature of the fabric again. But in terms of durability, well, this is definitely more durable. I did get that one little tear in it, but I do think that Alpha Direct fleece would have just got an absolute hammering on my big walk I did. On the walks I have taken it on, it has fared fine, but they were open tracks. There was no scrub, nothing like that. I don't think I would take it into scrub, but it is a great, very lightweight fleece for those other types of walks. It is nearly half the weight of this thing. So which one should you choose for your next hiking adventure? Well, it comes down to what sort of trip you're going on and your specific needs. If you want something a bit more robust, it's going to hold up to harder conditions, I'd probably go with the North Face. But if you just want something you can chuck on when you're around camp, if you're not going anywhere too crazy, if you're just going on open tracks, staying in huts, that sort of thing, then the Macpac Alpha Direct Nitro Fleece is a very good option for you. But if you're doing off-trail scrub expeditions, you just want a little extra bit of insulation on top of your thermal layer, then I'd go for the North Face for sure. And if you're still having trouble deciding on which fleece you want to get, then check out this video where I go through all my fleece over the years and tell you about some of my favorites. That might help you decide. See you next time.